I'm Margaret Peterson Haddix. I'm the author of 34 books now. I always have to kind of think about what the actual number is, but 34 books, and they're for a range of ages. I have some that are early chapter books for kids who have just learned how to read a chapter book, and then I have some that are middle grades, and I have some that are YA. The first idea that I had that I thought was the best idea for writing a book at that point was the idea for what became Running Out of Time, and I thought that that had to be a kid's book. I thought that the nature of the idea that it just wouldn't work as an adult book. And at that point, I was not a child anymore. I didn't have kids yet, and I wasn't really around kids very much. It was kind of the only point in my life when I lived a very adult-centric life. And I was really worried about it because I thought, this isn't going to work. I don't know how to write a kid's book. I don't know what kids are like anymore. And so one of the things that I did was that I went to the library and checked out a lot of the books that I had loved as a kid and kind of really studied them and thought, how is this going to work? And it reminded me how much I did love kids' books. And looking at it now, I realize that it makes perfect sense that I write for mainly the age group of 8 to 12, 10 to 14, kind of that range, because that was probably the point in my life when books made the biggest difference. That I've always loved books, but at that point they were just so important to me. The Missing series begins with an airplane landing at an airport in the Midwest, conveniently enough, and it is not supposed to be there, and so the people who are at the airport are pretty upset and are concerned about terrorist threats and all that kind of thing. Finally, somebody from the airport just walks onto the plane, looks around, discovers there's not a pilot, there's not a crew, there's not a single adult on that entire plane. There are just 36 babies. And then the action skips ahead 13 years, and these two 13-year-old boys named Jonah and Chip, talking to each other, discover that they were both adopted as babies, and neither one of them knows anything about their birth parents. And so it's not something that Jonah thinks is very important until they both start getting these bizarre letters. And the first letter that they get says, "You are one of the missing." And they don't know what to make of this. Then they get the second letter. And the second letter says, "Beware, they're coming back to get you." Then it does have a time travel connection in both those two boys, and then Jonah's younger sister, Catherine, end up getting to travel through time, kind of rescuing situations because of that. Obviously, I love history. I think it's fascinating. I think it's really interesting to imagine what it would be like to be at various points in history, and what if I were there having to make those choices that a lot of people in history have had to make. But there is definitely a part of, because it's something that I love, I would like to pass that love on to other people as well. And it's a lot easier to do that with a time travel context than writing a historical novel, because I previously wrote a straight historical novel called Uprising. It was very difficult writing in the voice of characters from that time period and reflecting the fact that there was a lot of sexism, there was a lot of racism, there was a lot of distrust between people who were from different ethnic backgrounds, and acknowledging that and trying to depict it accurately, but also trying to make it clear that that's not what I'm believing or espousing, or that's not what I want readers to take away from it. I don't want to make them racist or sexist or anything like that. And kind of one of the fun things about time travel is I'm taking 21st century kids and sending them back to these time periods where there are a lot of things going on, and they're understanding it from a context of the 21st century and looking at how things were done then. So I can make kind of those commentaries on the time period.